Hello, hello. Bom
Hello.
dia,
Hello.
bom dia. Здравствуйте. Sorry, but I don't know any more languages to speak. So, my dear friends and dear listeners, I'm sincerely happy to be with you again, to be here again in the arbitration channel, greatest channel. And today we have a very interesting event. So, actually, our panel is the first panel that will open the event. And today we start in BRICS ADR and ESG Law Week. This is the initiative of Professor Daniel Brands Ferreira, myself, and so we decided that the panel, the legal week itself, is very important because nowadays we discuss a lot. Scholars discuss a lot about environmental issues, about sustainability development. And of course, we do discuss a lot about technologies. And that is why the idea of the legal week and the idea of our panel itself is to discuss these crucial issues, in connection. And I'm very honored to be here to host this panel today because I have amazing and brilliant experts in the field of environmental law and sustainability, as well as in the field of technology law, which is great. So we will try to hear each other because, like those who are for ecology and environmental issues, they always try, to protect the environment, and ourselves as technology fan, we have our own point of view. So I'm sure the panel will be very interesting. So I will briefly introduce you, and then I will give you a word to greet us and to introduce yourself. So we have some BRICS countries, as it is a BRICS event. We have representatives from each country, which I like very much. Firstly, I want to introduce my dear friend from Russia, Professor Maria Bazhina. She's amazing expert in intelligent transportation. Next, we are now going to Brazil, and we have another brilliant expert, Daniel Becker. I already had an honor to talk to him to discuss very interesting issues related to regulatory sandboxes and arbitration. We had this discussion within this arbitration channel. It was amazing. So Daniel, I'm very glad you're here. And I'm also very happy to see Professor Sabrina Hasan. Professor Sabrina represents China today. And I met Professor Sabrina through my journal, and the International Journal of Law in Changing World, where she submitted amazing paper on environmental issues. So once I saw her paper, I decided that I won't let her go. That is why Professor Sabrina is here with us today. So please, Professor Maria, could you quickly introduce yourself?
Thank you, Elizaveta, for such amazing introduction of myself. First of all, I want to say great thanks to you, to Daniel Brantes Ferreira, for the invitation. And I am also happy that I can make my do my best to take part in this event. Briefly about myself, I'm a professor of Ural State Law University of Business Law Department, named after Yakushev, and my sphere of interests is business law and, of course, transportation law. I think that the major interest is for me now is the development of transportation in age of digitalization. It means that we have to focus on the modernization of legislation due to the fact of implementation technologies, and that is the main thing that I'm doing now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, dear Maria. Daniel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lisa. It's a pleasure to be here with you again, speaking in the arbitration channel. A short bio. I'm a lawyer in Brazil. I've been trained as a litigation arbitration lawyer. I've been studying technology, especially AI, since 2016. So almost 10 years I've been studying and working in the field. So right now, for the last couple of years, I've been working with major technology companies in Brazil. So, and following, of course, the regulation.
I'm so. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but I couldn't hear Professor Daniel at the last moment.
The same here. So I was thinking that maybe it is my connection, but
No.
I guess no.
No.
So, well, I hope Professor Daniel will appear soon. Otherwise, we will have purely female panel.
Oh, he's back.
Yes, finally. Hi.
So I don't know where you stop listening me, but as I was saying, I'm a litigation arbitration lawyer. I've been working with technology from the last 10 years, not only as a lawyer but also as a policymaker. So yeah, I'm happy to be here and happy to share a little bit of the Brazilian perspective in the topics that we are going to discuss here this morning or this afternoon or this night, depending on which time zone people are watching us.
Yes, dear Daniel, you also forgot to say, so I will say, Daniel's also arranging very interesting and amazing discussion within the arbitration channel on arbitration and technology. And I was the participant of the show, so Daniel, don't forget.
Yeah, okay. Actually, I host a column here in the arbitration channel on arbitration technology, and we have been doing receiving amazing panelists to speak on the topics, such as Lisa. So some of them are in English, most of them in Portuguese, but some of them are in English. So I invite you also to watch the past events that we had there. Thank you, Lisa, for reminding me.
Okay, thank you so much. And Professor Sabrina, the floor is yours.
Yeah, greetings everyone, and thank you, Elizaveta, for the invitation and the opportunity to be part of this timely discussion. As you have mentioned, we got to know each other through your journal, and I thank you again for accepting my paper. I'm so glad to know that you found it so excellent and read-worthy, and I look forward to contribute more through my participation, and this is also a new experience for me to be part of this talk. I won't say I'm an expert because I'm also learning, and I believe we all learn with time. So I look forward to this event, and technology, because of technological advancement, we are talking to each other from different parts of the world. So technology has made everything very convenient, but still we face so many challenges in terms of law, regulation, and also in practice, we also face some difficulties. So as legal scholars, it's our role or our job to do research and to provide policy guidance and some it's our job to discuss about the problems and how can we mitigate those issues. And climate change is everywhere, like the talk is everywhere now. We all are talking about it and technology is there. So it's really a great question to ask at this moment, whether technology is climate friendly or is challenging, which will help to mitigate and reduce the emissions, or it will be challenging. And from legal scholars perspective, of course it's challenging because technology advances in a rapid way, but law takes time to develop or change or improve. So to maintain the progress or move in line with the development, it becomes very challenging. So I look forward to the talk and learn from the experts, Professor Maria and expert Professor Daniel. I look forward to learn from you a lot. I also hope that I can make some contributions as well. Thank you.
I'm sure you will, dear Sabrina. And like 5 years ago, when I was just started to research in the sphere of technologies, I was sure that technologies are very environmentally friendly, that it is just industry is the enemy, technologies are are innocent. But suddenly I found out that it is actually IT and the industry makes more harm, much more harm than industry itself. And that was so much surprising. And now when we have artificial intelligence, when we are training large language models, I was surprised to know that it is very, very harmful to environment.
Yeah.
But before we will discuss the environmental issues, I firstly would love to ask each of you how legislation of your country encourages technological development. Professor Maria, could you please start?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I think that nowadays Russia tries to be the first in different spheres that are connected with technologies, especially in transportation. So we have different legislation acts of different levels of federal and laws, and also we have different acts of ministries or different acts of the government that guides us in this field. It means that the majority of acts are not like laws to which we used to. It means that they do not have the straight regulation. They just have the path, the direction in which we have to go. And it means that our legislation is trying to find the right way. And we also looking to our neighbors, to other countries, and try to find what the way is the right one. And I should say that the legislation is in the stage of modernization. So and it seems to me that we can that our legislation body, not body, but the all legislation is subdivided into two directions. The first one is our legislation that is exist, the current legislation that guides the process that are common, that are used to us. And the other part of legislation is just in the stage of forming, of modernization, because we do not have the certain norms. I just bring the short example in the area of transportation. You know that nowadays we have automated vehicles, so we have them in in our reality, but we have some introductions, some changes in our current legislation in the first block of legislation. Yeah, so we have definitions, but all these definitions are different and depends on the kind of transportation. For example, in maritime law, we have autonomous vehicles, and for example, in automobile transportation, we have highly automated or fully automated vehicles. This is what we have in like the changes into current legislation, but we also have some acts that not regulate but gives us direction. We call it in Russian "дорожная карта", or in English we can translate it like the roadmap. And according to this roadmap, we have to develop our legislation. We have to develop technologies, and that is the main idea of our Russian legislation now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, dear Professor Maria. As a representative of Russia myself, I also want to add a bit. We do encourage development of autonomous vehicles a lot, and sometimes even some scholars say, no, please be careful, because we don't want machine to rebel. But this winter we have funny situation, because unmanned vehicles can drive, driverless taxi or and delivery machines, they can drive through Moscow, but it is Russia, we have lots of snow. And poor little thing that want to deliver some stuff to people, it's stuck in the snow. And Russians just helped this machine, and they made funny pictures, and they say, well, machines won't rebel in Russia because of our weather conditions. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist and not to share this joke with you. Okay, and so from Russia, we are now traveling to Brazil. Daniel, could you please share us how Brazilian legislation encourages technology development?
Thank you, Lisa. I will make a cut here in what I'm going to say and talk only about technology-driven regulation legislation, because in general, corporate law in Brazil is full of bureaucracy. So when you try to foster innovation, you have to go through corporate law, how to establish a company, and we have a lot of bureaucracy right now ongoing. And in the recent years, we had some legislation focusing on reducing bureaucracy for starting new companies, but the situation isn't good still. It's hard to start a company and to innovate in Brazil, generally based on corporate law. Talking about technology specific regulation and legislation, since the GDPR entered into force in Europe, we published a law called LGPD, the Brazilian Data Protection Law, which is very, very, very inspired by the European GDPR. And after that, we had a discussion on a sort of DSA, a Digital Services Act for Brazil. But the discussion in the National Congress, it wasn't going anywhere, because the law was very harshly politicized by both parties in the Congress, and simply the bill was abandoned by legislators. And right now we were discussing AI framework that is also inspired by the UAI Act. And we also abandoned this project because there was a, like almost 100 amendments to the project and to the bill, and we had to go back and start all over again. So and now, right now we are seeing Europe changing its instance on technology, especially after Donald Trump election in the United States. So we do not know what the benchmark for Brazil will be. And my critic, since the enactment of the GDPR in Europe, and of course the discussions on the Brazilian data protection law, was we need to be very careful when we start copying legislation from abroad. I believe in trans-administrative law, in treaties, but when you are discussing a very harsh legislation focused and on technology, you have to look to some aspects of the culture and some aspects of the economic moment of the country. And especially right now when we are talking about AI and the AI race ongoing, and how we know that AI will change like the way we do almost everything. It will change the social landscape, will change the industries. We have to think about a way to approach artificial intelligence based on the needs of of the country that we are thinking about. So my my idea, and this is something that we've been discussing right now in Brazil, is we shouldn't regulate AI like the European Union is regulating it. We need to focus on the downstream effects of the technology, not the upstream effects. Technology, AI is like the internet, is like energy. We have like infinite possibilities when we are combining the technology. So we need to think about how the technology will behave in the judiciary, how the technology will behave in transportation, how the technology will be in drug development. So with this approach, I think we will have a much more healthy way to control and use it safely, thinking about consumers, thinking about society, thinking about employees. And we have these sort of sparks of this downstream regulation. We have, for instance, regulation on the use of Gen AI by lawyers, by the Brazilian Bar Association. We have regulation of the usage of Gen AI by judges from the National Council of Justice. So I think that's a very slow-paced approach, and I think that's the best way to foster the development and innovation especially on the AI field, which is the most important technology, in my opinion, that will change everything in the next few years. So, regarding technology generally, that's a good framework for you to understand a little bit better how things are going on in Brazil. So, yeah, we can make a deep dive in some topics here of this discussion, but I'm gonna pass the word back to you, Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this very interesting answer. So, as Daniel said, he's both his scholar and practitioner. And I guess, dear professors, you notice this the view, the look of the practitioner here. Daniel, thank you so much. And I agree that of course, we need to check how other countries develop its legislation, and I guess we need to borrow something, but of course we need to borrow it wisely, because each country has its own legal culture, legal tradition, legal history, and so on. And now, speaking of another country, dear Professor Sabrina, could you please tell us how legislation of your country encourages technological development?
Yeah, thank you, Professor Elizaveta. As I'm originally from Bangladesh, so I would also like to talk about the situation in Bangladesh, adding to China, of course. The main common thing in these countries, like the status of these countries, like the least developing countries or near to developed countries, the challenge there is, I think, higher than the other countries, because they are already dealing with the already done environmental damage, like how to mitigate all those challenges. So that is already a challenge there, and to adopt these new technologies and to implement those and to adopt some regulations is another challenge. So from Bangladesh aspect, I think the legislations are not up to date to accommodate or to facilitate these regulations or these new technologies. However, they are trying to adopt, because the main agenda of these developing countries is the economic development. They always try to go for the economic development, detrimenting the environment. So environmental harms, and they become the greatest polluters among all the nations, and because they always strive for economic development, and economic development comes with these challenges, like we always neglect the environment. But the situation has changed nowadays, because we can see the improvements in terms of ship recycling, because Bangladesh is one of the top countries for ship recycling and ship breaking. And in 2018, they have changed the law, and they have also become party to the Hong Kong Convention recently. So they are trying to accommodate all these new updates and to cope up with the International Maritime Organization's goals for the net zero emissions. So the country is trying to amend its existing laws and other regulations to meet the sustainable development goals and other goals. However, it's not up to the level yet, not satisfactory, but hopefully it will, like in recent years, it will mitigate these challenges and adopt some impactful regulations and effective laws. And compared to talking about China, of course, the technology here is at its extreme level. They try for the technological development, their laws, their economic targets, and other developments. Everything is based on the technological development. We can see that China is ahead in this field compared to other nations or other countries. And the China's 5 years plan, then the Made in China 2025 targets, all these are like they try to welcome the technology, because it's also part of their economy. So we can see that China is ahead in this region from the Asian perspective. China, they have already amended their environmental policies and laws. So now it's we are looking forward to see the implementation of those amendments, because policymakers and legislators, they can amend, they can change, but the real scenario comes in effect when the implementation is successful. So if the implementation is successful, then we can say the law is effective. So comparing between these two countries, we can see the least developing countries like Bangladesh, it's more challenging for them. And then also, if they adopt this new challenge, new technology, then they also face other supplementary challenges. For example, the cybersecurity or data security, because they lack those infrastructure or technology or other facilities. So if they do not get the global support or fundings from the developed countries, it becomes very difficult for them to adopt these technologies and improve their situation to meet the global environmental targets. So maybe in coming COP30, we can also have a discussion in terms of the technological advancement and environmental sustainability from the least developing countries' perspectives as well. Previously, as we have seen, that the funding, developing countries' request for funding was not supported during COP26. However, during COP27, there was some aspects to receive some funding, like $300 billion of funding to get. And so if the developing countries can get support from the developed countries or the global through the global cooperation, then maybe they can have better policies and regulations, and they can also have the infrastructure development friendly to the environment as well. Otherwise, it becomes very difficult for them to meet the global targets and to develop the infrastructures. As Professor Maria also mentioned about the autonomous shipping to come in the near future. So to for the developed countries, yes, for example, the Nordic countries, they are ahead of developing these or accepting these technologies, like Norway, Finland. They may have this technology in recent years, but for developing countries, it will be very challenging to have these technologies for them. And all the ports, they are not well infrastructured or well developed, so the emission from shipping industry is very high from the least developing countries. But China, they are having the global cooperation. They are trying to meet the global targets, and we can see in the last 10 years, there has been a lot of improvement and changes through their 5 years policies or 14-year targets, or made in China 2025 targets, or the amendments to their environmental policies. So they are now working on improving and meeting the environmental targets. So that I could say from the perspectives of these two countries.
Thank you so much, dear Professor Sabrina. So today you have a double task or double work. You are comparing your own country and China. So thank you so much for this comparison. This was very interesting. And what I want to say about China, I can't stop admiring the country's development. Firstly, long ago, we started to talk about China, and it was associated with the term Chinese economic miracle. And then what we have now, it is amazing technological development of this country. Yeah, so now we have, I don't know if there is a term, but Chinese technological miracle. So that is why. So thank you again for you to share the Chinese experience, because it is very, very important nowadays. Okay, dear colleagues, thank you so much for your very interesting and informative answers on the first question. And next question. So I couldn't resist and not to ask you about just technologies, as you know, I'm a technology fan. But now, of course, we need to talk more about the connection between technologies and sustainability issues. So my next question is does regulation of innovations in your country contains provisions related to ensuring sustainable development? Professor Maria, could you please answer and share Russian experience?
Well, yes, of course, but if you let me, I just want to tell, when I was hearing professors, I just found some interesting thing. So we all speak about global cooperation in this or that way, but we speak about the main feature of technology that it is not the story of one country. It is the story story of the whole world. But of course, as Professor Sabrina said, some countries are more developed, some of them are not, and it is also a kind of challenge, because global cooperation cannot be from once only for some countries. Technologies are has such feature that they go through these through all boundaries, and we cannot stop them. So you can think about, for example, blockchain technology or Bitcoin, for example, and that is the point. And in sense of transportation, it is also the same. And autonomous or automated vehicles show us that it is impossible to regulate only on the part of one country. We have to elaborate regulations that would be fine for all participants of the global cooperation. So we speak about international legislation, and it is, of course, we have international acts and so on, but nowadays they are more important than ever because of the feature of these technologies. And sorry for these for coming back to the previous question, and what we speak, and when we speak about your new question for us, I can say that our legislation tries to support and tries to do all that is impossible on the level of our development, to make new technologies, not only to regulate them, but to make them possible to be implemented in this or that sphere. And it is very important for us because well, technologies changes our life, and we have to find the good answer from the legal side, because we do not want we all want good for ourselves, yes, and we do not want to spoil the right effect of the technologies, and that is why our legislation has to look at this side. And what we do, so we have, as I've told you, some roadmaps or strategies and so on, but we also have standards, some standards. For example, when we speak about again, transportation, I'm sorry for giving such examples only in this field, but I just studied them, and I see that in our legislation we have some standards that give technical overview of some technologies. For example, intelligent transportation systems. We have special standard that regulates that defines what is standard. It is first of all, then it gives us explanation in different parts of implementation these intellectual transportation systems. And I think that such kind of step gives our country an opportunity to follow these standards and to implement implement these technologies in the right way. And it is important. But as I've said above, as I said before, it is very important that we have to elaborate international regulations, because when we have standards only in our country and they do not fit standards of the other country, we cannot make any international contacts, or we cannot conclude different international contracts, and that is the point. We also face the problem of, for example, electronic documents. When we, for example, in Russia, we have our common, our own forms of documents, and for example in other countries there are their own forms of documents. Now I speak not only about paper forms, but I speak about the formats of programs that can read these documents. And it is very important because for example waybill, it is also a document, and when these electronic waybill do not fit the programs that is in another country, it is impossible to do any contract and to deliver goods and other stuff. So technologies are impossible here, and only lawyers in this sense are magics that can do all the best of them to make these technologies work in the sense of legal field. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Professor Maria. Your discussions are always an inspiration. Well, at least for me. And what I loved in your speech specifically, that we need to develop cooperation. It is important, and that is the point. I agree. And for example, the last year we had a BRICS summit in Kazan in Russia, and in Kazan's declaration on BRICS cooperation, we said that we need to develop cooperation in the sphere of artificial intelligence. So this is a nice example of how we start in cooperation in the sphere of certain technology.
Elizaveta, I just want to interrupt you. Sorry. And what I have noticed, I just want to share with you, and maybe colleagues can share their opinion on this issue. I see that we lawyers, even we lawyers, not technical specialists, but we lawyers always speak about technical side, technical issues of technologies. And we try to cooperate in this field, but I think that we have to cooperate in the legal sphere and to elaborate norms that will fit everyone and will give impulse for the further development.
Thank you so much, dear Professor Maria, for your comments. And Daniel, could you please tell us about your vision?
Of course. I don't know if you are aware, but here in Brazil, we have a very strong environmental regulation when you talk about traditional, or I don't know if there is a best way to address that, but how do we manage garbage? How do we protect the rainforest? We have a very strong regulation on that by the environmental authorities here in Brazil. But I think there are some risks related to emerging technologies that aren't covered in legislation, especially because what Professor Sabrina mentioned, we have this different pace for the development, the legislation, regulation, and development of technology. So, of course, the technology will always be much faster than the National Congress processes to enact a law, and also even when you talk about the regulation authorities, the administrative authorities that also enact regulation, they are not as fast as technology, especially because when we talk, for instance, when we talk about AI, that the top minds of the world are thinking about AI. Trillions of dollars are being invested in AI. There's no way to compete, especially when you're talking about speed. So I think we are way behind here in Brazil. When we talk about how do we create a sustainable framework and a sustainable basis for the deployment, the development, and the management of these new technologies, and especially when we talk about artificial intelligence, and mainly generative artificial intelligence. As you said here in the beginning, Lisa, we have like astonishing statistics when we talk about the energy that is spent when you ask a question, for instance, for ChatGPT. I read that you spend like 10 bottles of water for every 100 words that the Gen AI produces. So yeah, I think we should here, at least here in Brazil, but I think it's a general problem, create more, not only soft law, because we are under soft law for data centers. We have some certifications for data centers for clean energy and sustainable practice, but I think we need to be more, create some hardship when we talk about the management of energy for the usage in artificial intelligence, also for blockchain and cryptocurrency. And I don't see that developing fast enough to tackle the losses, the environmental losses that are being generated by artificial intelligence. So maybe we are looking at the wrong problem when we talk about AI regulation. The problem is not that AI will take over and destroy everything. I think the existential risk here is the environmental risk, because the technology won't stop. It's being every day, every week, new models are being deployed, new adjacent technologies to artificial intelligence are being deployed. And I believe that in the next years we will have like a way stronger adoption of the technology. We are in the first days of, for instance, talking about the BRICS, but especially Brazil, we have a very low level of AI literacy. And in the next few years, we have much more people using the technology, like common people. So yeah, I think that's the main problem, and that what we are missing here in Brazil. I don't know if I was clear, but yeah, that's my that's my idea for this topic.
Thank you so much, dear Daniel. And yes, you were very clear, and all that you said. Yes, I agree with everything. I will add quickly about Russia. Sorry, Maria. Well, the thing is that in Russia, we do encourage technological development a lot. We do stimulate our business to be more innovational, to produce innovations. And when we evaluate the efficiency, we only evaluate economic efficiency. We rarely pay attention to environmental or ecological efficiency. And that is not good. I mean, according to Russian legislation, of course, I can see nowadays that we are trying to modernize our legislation, and we are now trying to evaluate not just economic efficiency but environmental efficiency as well. Okay, thank you again, dear Daniel and Professor Sabrina. Will you share again both Bangladesh and China experience?
Yes, I will try. As I have mentioned previously, like it's very challenging for the least developing countries to meet the international standards and the global targets. The laws of Bangladesh, like in theory, there are laws and principles, but in practice, there is a problem. Most of the regulations, principles, laws, they are not well implemented. That's why we are facing a lot of environmental challenges. But recently, we can see there is a paradigm shift from the only focusing on the economic targets, then having a mutual cooperation and having a parallel improvement, like prioritizing for economic development, also thinking about the environment. So even though sustainability is not a core principle within these legislations, however, it's obviously a part of the legislations, because the countries, they have global obligations to meet the international standards. So they are now amending the national legislations, and China is obviously in advanced position, where uh, like the moment they had this ecological civilization concept. So through this concept, they have improved a lot, and they are prioritizing the environmental sustainability. So ecological civilization was a great initiative for this environmental sustainability, and the amendments to the national legislations and cooperating with the international treaties and conventions. So the countries are now still in process of amending or changing or adopting new regulations. As in terms of AI or this digitalization, we cannot ignore AI anymore, because the more we go forward, we will see the rapid advancement. Previously, reports say that the AI, ChatGPT, it consumes more electricity than a normal Google search. But now we can see even the Google search, it also includes AI. Like we can see the quick use of Gemini within the Google search. So we cannot ignore the advancement of AI. It will be in everyone's hand within a couple of years. So as Professor Daniel mentioned, that the problem is not within the AI, the problem is within the users and the implementation of regulations and law. Of course, technology is there to make our lives easier, not to create complications or problems. So the problems are created through the users, without lack of awareness and other lack of implementation of laws and regulations. So we need better policies and regulations to and the implementation is the most challenging part, because the countries, they always prioritize the economic goals. So having a synergy between the economic goals and environmental sustainability is important. That is where we need to look at. And then so of course AI, and as I have mentioned previously, the cybersecurity and data security challenges are also there. So even though we adopted the technology, we developed the infrastructures and everything, but how to deal with the cybersecurity challenges, it's also problematic for the least developing countries. And Bangladesh is also a new member of the New Development Bank, so it also has a role to play there. And green financing has been there, but the implementation of it was not satisfactory or not successful, because so even though we used to have the green financing, green development, but the implementation of those concepts were not of satisfactory level. So even though we come with new regulations and new policies, we are not sure whether those will be successful or implemented well. So it will always be challenging for the countries. So that's why we need the cooperation between the private and public entities, and also the role of stakeholders are also important here, because ultimately the private entities, they are the ones who will take forward these digital technologies or AI or so on. So how the partnership between the private and public entities will be there, and how this can be strengthened, that is also an aspect to look at. So I think we, as Professor Maria also emphasized on global cooperation, of course, it should be there, and the synergy between the private and public partnership should also be considered. And yes, with the implementation, I think that's the most challenging part for from different countries aspects, because now it's not, everything is not limited within the national strategies or national laws, because the economy or trade everywhere we cooperate with the international communities. So whether it's shipping industry or any other industry, there is always a collaboration or cooperative work. So the national legislation, they also need to be uniformed. We are uniformed, and there should be uniform global standards and global regulations as well, keeping the different aspects of national strategies.
Thank you so much, dear Professor Sabrina. And again, we are talking about the necessity to develop international cooperation of the countries. And what I also want to comment in your speech, a very interesting speech, you told us that we need to implement these green policies. And what I want to share about China, one of my research areas are the special economic zones. And when I was thinking about Russian special economic zones, other special economic zones, well, I checked that we only, again, we evaluate efficiency of economic efficiency of special economic zones. And I asked myself if other countries evaluate environmental efficiency of special economic zones. And I found out that actually China offered sustainable green model of special economic zones and a special economic zone. And I was so much surprised. So this is this correlation between the economic development and environmental issues through the greening policies. Okay. Thank you so much for your very interesting questions, very interesting answers. And now we have the second part of our panel. We will have specific questions to each of our speakers, because as you can see, our speakers are really fans of what they are researching. Everyone noticed, I noticed it. I understand you so much, because I'm absolutely the same. So now I will ask some questions specific to the research or practicing area of each of you. And so Professor Maria, amazing expert, one of the best experts in Russia, by the way, in the sphere of transportation. Her dissertation was devoted to this area. Dear Professor Maria, could you please tell us, so of course my question will be about the transportation area. So what are the major legal instruments to reduce or mitigate the negative impact on the environment in sense of implementation of digital technologies in transportation?
Oh, Elizaveta, first of all, it's so hot because of our discussion and because of the willing to share different ideas and to maybe contribute a little bit to our global success in cooperation. And you make me more red because of such a very amazing introduction again. But coming to the question, so I want to say that, of course, we cannot say that we can see in each event, in each thing, we can see pros and cons. And from this point of view, technology is, of course, not only gives us not only good, but we also have some back side of the implementation. And I think that now, if we speak about good sides, we can say that technologies can help us to be more friendly to our environment. And I want to stress that if we look to our strategies, for example, there is a strategy on transportation development till 2035, we can notice that there are some sentences, not a lot, but there are some sentences that are devoted to the value of friendly attitude to environment. And as the mean to reach this goal, I mean the friendly attitude, autonomous vehicles or automated vehicles are named. And what is more important, that these automated vehicles or highly developed vehicles, we can say so, they are only the part of very important collaboration of technologies. Now I speak about the intelligent transportation system, and this system is not only one kind of technology. It is the combination of different technologies, their mix, and their wise implementation. And when we speak about intelligent transportation systems, of course, they make a lot to reduce the negative impact on the environment. What does it mean? It means that due to these ETS, so we call it ITS, we can say that we can reduce traffic jams, and of course the bad congestions. We also can reduce the gas that goes to our environment. And the regulation of traffic is very important in sense of thinking about our environment. And intelligent transportation system is the key to this problem, and it can help us to stop pollution of the air. We also speak about, for example, new kinds of electricity, new kinds of source of electricity. And yesterday we had the meeting with the representative of one of the state corporations of Russian Federation, Rosatom, and he spoke about the atom energy, and in this sense the development of new technologies in this field also can help us to reduce bad impact on the environment, and to make also transportation sphere more friendly to the environment, because the development on new sources of electricity gives us an opportunity to develop transportation that use not fuel but electricity. And in this sense, it is important to develop the infrastructure of cities and also of roads to develop the implementation of these new automobiles. And these cannot be only the step of the technology. It is also the step of the legislation, because we elaborate norms that encourage business to use, for example, transport that use electricity. We encourage people that use such kind of cars, and it is very important for us. And in this sense, I think that we have the collaboration today. Collaboration is the main word between technology and legislation, and they work together and not separately. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria. And to continue our conversation about the transportation, now you talked a lot about the development and the perspectives of the development of efficient transportation. But can you name any obstacles that doesn't allow us to create efficient and including environmentally efficient transportation?
Yes, Elizaveta, you are absolutely right that, as I've said, that there are pros and cons. We can say that there is another side of the medal, we say so in Russia. I think that I agree. Firstly, I want to say that I agree with Professor Daniel, who said that nowadays more and more people use technology, the results of technology. And it is, of course, good, but they are not aware of the impact of these technologies, of the right way of their use. There is no culture of using these technologies, and that is the problem. And that is the problem not only in global, but also in the sphere of transportation. And we have to work with these, and even on the legal level, we can introduce some educational programs that can help people to understand the value. Maybe it can be at schools or at universities and so on, but we have to think about this. The second idea about obstacles is that for example, our legislation does not so there is not correlation between the current legislation and the legislation that is devoted to the technologies. You know, it's like two different branches. Of course, we try to combine them, to bind them, but nowadays there is, for example, the block, as I've told you previously, the block of legislation that is devoted to the current issues, current relations that we used to, and another block of legislation, for example, some experimental regimes that are devoted of exploitation of intelligent transportation system. Or, for example, nowadays in Russia, we have an act that introduced the intelligent transportation platform for electronic documents, and but it is only experimental regime. It is not the legislation itself, and so it's legislation, but it's only for some period of time. And I always have a question: what will be the next if this regime will be stopped? So we have to implement these into our reality, but there is no such provisions that can make these implementation friendly, or maybe not so sharp, and so on. That is also the problem. And not the last, but maybe the last for today to announce, but not the last in the value. I want to say that there is the problem of cooperation. So, some political issues and obstacles, and of course, we cannot elaborate regulation that can make a seamless the transportation process. And it is very bad because that transportation can develop only when we have good international collaboration, and in this sense it could become an obstacle for the development of legislation also. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Maria. I can see how much you dedicated to the topic. And by the way, Professor Maria recently published first in Russia book, a monography, as we say in Russia, a book devoted to regulation of intelligent transportation systems. And yes, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yes, and now we discussed regulation of transportation, intelligent transportation in Russia, and now I want to go back to Brazil and discuss Brazilian experience in the sphere of artificial intelligence and sustainable development with our dear friend Daniel. So Daniel, could you please share, according to your experience, in Brazilian experience, what are the main regulatory challenges in ensuring the innovations aligns with the principle of sustainable development?
Yeah, that's a very interesting and hard question to answer. So when we talk about technology generally, there's a sort of futurology, the study of the future, and we shouldn't have, I at least don't have any fear that these in like a couple of years what I'm saying here doesn't make any sense, because when we talk about technology we talk about the future, and the future is uncertainty in the end. So but basically from my own point of view right now, as I said before, and regarding the Brazilian landscape on AI regulation, we had this bill that was being discussed in the Brazilian Congress, that it was pretty much inspired in the UAI Act, and now we took a step back to reevaluate how this AI law will be structured. So since we have like globally a moment of uncertainty regarding the approach on technology regulation, I don't think that in the next 2 or 3 years we will have a complete Brazilian framework on AI, and we have to rely on what is, my opinion, the best option. As I said, it's the downstream applications of technology, how to regulate the downstream applications. And in this sense, it's way easier to control and to analyze and verify the outcomes and to experiment. And that's what I think that it's the future, at least in the short term. Regarding that, we still have some specific and some general challenges that we have to address in Brazil. Talking about the general challenges, I believe that we have some sort of, not only in Brazil, but abroad as well. I believe that in China, Russia, and Bangladesh as well, a certain doubt in how we will manage privacy and how we will manage copyright when we talk about large language models and Gen AI in general, because the law wasn't drafted thinking about Gen AI, how the technology would work in the future. So it's very hard. We have here in Brazil a case in which Meta was there was a proceeding instituted by the Brazilian Data Protection Authority asking Meta to stop training its AI model on personal data from Brazilians. It took some time. Meta made a sort of entered into a settlement with the Data Protection Authority to continue training the data, but with some cautions. Also, regarding copyright here in Brazil, we don't have like strong litigation on the topic, but I see that in the United States, you have a lot of lawsuits ongoing against OpenAI discussing whether we can or we cannot train these AI models on copyrighted material. So I believe that in this sense, maybe we need to adjust like major legislation that covers such as the data protection law, such as the copyright law in Brazil. But yeah, that are general issues that have to be tackled by the National Congress, and we still have a long way to tackle these challenges. And talking about specific issues, I believe that cooperation between agencies, since artificial intelligence by its nature is a general purpose technology, we have to foster the cooperation between agencies and regulatory authorities here in Brazil. And we don't see that right now in this moment. So we have, instead of that, we see a competition between these authorities on how and how much and how I'm going to regulate this technology, this application. So I think with more cooperation between authorities and also, of course, environmental authorities, we have a much more safer and interesting framework, including not only to innovate but also to invest in the country. And because Brazil, as I said in the beginning, there's a lot of bureaucracy here, and of course it affects the decision on the investor whether he will invest in Brazil or not. And besides that, we have a very, very complicated and taxation environment. We are having some changes right now. We made a reform in a tax reform here in Brazil, and we don't see how it will get less complicated in the near future as well. So at least if we have a friendly regulatory framework for technology, it will be way easier. And as I said as well in the other topic, we don't have a strong framework for environmental protection when we are dealing with emerging technologies. And this is a challenge. And everything that I said here goes back to the first point, and that also Maria mentioned. We have a very low level of AI literacy. First, when you talk about society, people have a deep trust in the technology, a very strong automation bias, and of course, it affects personal and political decisions of the citizens. We also have a very low level of AI literacy in companies, which means that people use generative AI, the large language models, to make important decisions in their work, even though they generally don't understand how the technology works. They don't know that it's autocomplete on asteroids. They think that sometimes it's an oracle, and of course it's a problem. It's risky. And lastly but not least, we have the problem with the low level of AI literacy in politics. the policymakers, politicians, they don't understand the technology. So yeah, we have a very hard job in the next few years, and as I said as well, technology won't stop. So it's a very urgent topic that we need to address. First, we need to literate society as a whole, and then we'll move on to specific and major macroeconomic topics on regulation and ESG when we talk about technology.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Daniel. I loved your answer. And what I loved specifically, of course, we need to do something to fight with the illiteracy in the sphere of artificial intelligence. And of course, for this, we need some legal actions. I mean, some regulatory framework. And as you said, we need some friendly regulatory framework. And so my next question will be about one of the innovative approach of creation of this friendly regulatory framework. Professor Maria already told us about experimental legal regimes. It is how we call regulatory sandboxes in Russia. So, dear Daniel, could you please tell us if regulatory sandboxes can support sustainable development somehow? What is your opinion?
Yeah, that's a very important issue. Brazil has a interesting background when you talk about sandboxes, especially in the financial sector, talking about the capital markets, banking industry, and insurance industry. We had like some successful companies in this sandbox. There was a time like 6-7 years ago that it was an interesting moment. Every regulatory agency was thinking about the sandbox, was discussing about sandboxes. Now it stopped a little bit. It's still going strong in the financial industry and the financial regulation, but we had, like, for instance, by that time, the Brazilian FDA was discussing to the establishment of a sandbox for electronic cigarettes. We had the Brazilian National Civil, the Brazilian Aviation Agency discussing sandboxes for drones. But as I said, suddenly the interest in sandbox dropped a little bit. I don't know why. I don't know why this phenomenon. We had the pandemic, so yeah, maybe it will come back in the next few years, since it's a matter of urgency to bring this very interesting tool back to the Brazilian regulatory framework. I believe that in order to foster technology, especially in the absence of a specific regulation, sandboxes can be a way not only to protect the companies, but also to protect society. This is very important, because when you talk about sandboxes, I hear a lot of people saying, "Oh no, you're gonna give like a green light to the company to do whatever it wants." But in fact, if you have control, if you have KPIs, if you have constant monitoring, it's the best way to foster innovation and protect society. Because there's not, at least not that I'm aware of, but at least in Brazil I can say there's not a regulatory framework that is so intense when you talk about monitoring and a close follow-up by authorities. And in that sense, also, you can bring and embed in the regulatory bid, in the sandbox proposal, bring ESG criteria in order to guarantee that this initiative, this company that's joining the sandbox proposal is adherent, will comply with these obligations. It's way easier to do that when we are working with a sandbox, then we are working with separate authorities, and each one will start its own process of fiscalization and going on from that. I think that also it's important in the sandbox proposal, if you, for instance, take the example that I mentioned, when you're talking about sandbox for drones by an aviation agency, you have to bring other players to other stakeholders, especially authorities, to join and also participate in the sandbox as overseers if we want a successful and outcome of
Dear Daniel, well, I guess Daniel a bit froze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just finishing. So yeah, we lack that right now in Brazil. So that's the end.
Thank you so much for your answer, Daniel. Actually, I was waiting for this to ask this question and to hear your answer specifically because, as you know, I love regulatory sandboxes. And what is more, next on the Thursday, I will go to a huge conference here in Russia, and the topic of my keynote will be if sandboxes can be green. So,
amazing,
and what I want, yes, that is why I was so much surprised when you actually telling me the same. So our minds are we had the same in our minds.
Yeah,
So
I want to know. Tell me later how did it go?
Of course, I will tell you later. And what I want to consider in my keynote, if we can test digital green innovations, first question, and if sandboxes can be environmentally efficient by itself, because we do not check environmental efficiency of sandboxes, at least here in Russia. So this will be in my keynote, and we will discuss it later. Thank you so much, dear Daniel. And now, I'm honored to give a word to Professor Sabrina, amazing expert. I told you long ago that I loved her paper so much, and today I want to also to devote some attention to your research area. And what I want to ask, if or how can digitalization in the shipping industry contribute to reducing environmental impact? Could you please share us, Professor Sabrina?
Thank you for your question. Actually, digitalization, of course, it offers real tools for cutting emissions and fuel waste in maritime transport. So, because even on the IML level, the target is to meet the net zero emissions. So, digitalization can help to achieve those targets because technologies like AI-based route planning and real-time fuel monitoring can improve efficiency significantly. So smart port systems can help to reduce the idle time and congestion. So and already we have seen examples in, for example, like in India's Sagarmala program and also China's smart port pilot projects. So the adoption of these kind of technologies can help to mitigate the emission levels, as these will help to reduce the emission and also the consumption of fuels which contribute to emissions, especially the black carbon from shipping industry. Then even in Bangladesh, efforts are underway to digitalize port logistics because the country is also striving for blue economy. So, however, the port structures are not up to date and not environmental friendly. So, the country is also looking forward to digitalize its port facilities and infrastructures to reduce the emissions and provide the facilities in a faster and digitalized manner. However, it's important to note that digital solutions are matched um, um, with some regulatory oversight as well. So therefore, we will have some complexities in reducing the pollutions if we do not monitor or digital technologies in a proper manner. So these developments are underway, and as its reports or the developers, they say that this will be environmental friendly and this will help to meet the emission reduction rate. So the potential is there, but it's also about like scaling these tools and ensuring that they are accessible even to smaller and regional operators. So at first hand, we believe that the technologies in the shipping industry will help to reduce the emission levels, as this will have a positive impact on environment, and this will be environmental friendly, but this will be challenging if not monitored properly or regulate in a proper manner. So digitalization can reduce environmental impact in the shipping industry by the fuel waste management, and then AI-based route planning can help to monitor the real-time fuel consumption and other facilities. So this will be helpful. And also recently the IMO has agreed to implement a global carbon tax on shipping emissions, aiming for net zero emissions by 2050. So this plan includes emission intensity standards and requires ship owners to meet reduction targets and contribute to net zero fund. So while they will have this obligation from the international level, they will try to incorporate this digitalization or digital facilities within the shipping sector to meet those goals and agendas. And then also almost 2024 scheme, like the navigating the future safety first, this also reflects efforts to enhance maritime safety and environmental protection, anticipating the rapid technological changes. So we can see or infer that there will be a huge change in terms of technology and port infrastructure development, port digitalizations. Then also the maritime autonomous surface ships. These will also bring a huge change within this maritime industry, and these are believed to be environment friendly and to make uh, the industry sustainable and also reduce the emissions. And then the AI being utilized to optimize sea navigation, potentially reducing carbon emissions by 47 million tons annually. So AI aids in maneuvering the reducing the deviations, thus cutting fuel consumptions. So overall, we can see that the one common researchers are coming out with one common thing, that AI can help to cut the fuel consumptions. Even in road transportations, we can see that countries or users are moving to electronic vehicles from the fuel operated vehicles. So even in China, the users of the electronic vehicles are growing highly. Previously, we have seen that in Norway, the users of Tesla was very significant. Now, the BID is also there, and the other manufacturers, they are focusing on the electronic vehicles, and then these vehicles are getting advanced with the inclusion of artificial intelligence. So we can see there is a shift in the industries from the fuel operated vehicles to electronic vehicles, uh, believing that this will be environment friendly and sustainable. So the adoption of eco-friendly technologies such as energy efficient vessels and renewable energy sources is gaining the attention in the shipping industry as well. So this will be helpful. And as there is the prospect of these technologies, so the countries are also moving forward to digitalization, especially in the shipping industry. And for example, the amendment of marine environmental protection law in China, it strengthens the pollution prevention and control measures for vessels. Then also, China has a new policy that the companies listed on China's main board, they're required to disclose their sustainability information, including climate change and pollution control efforts. So this obligation is also making the industry more sustainable and environment friendly. So the digital transformation, in terms of digital transformation, digitalization is promoting green development in China's marine economy, particularly in the regions along the Belt and Road initiatives and maritime Silk Road. So enhancing port development through the digital means plays a crucial role in this progress. So, port and shipping enterprises in China are undergoing digital transformation to enhance the competitiveness and drive sustainable development. So, the earlier digitalization of this industry will take countries forward, also not only from the economic perspective, also from the environmental perspective. So the countries who will lag behind in terms of adoption of these technologies, they will also lag behind in terms of the environmental sustainability as well. So that was my response to your first question.
Okay, thank you so much. What I want to share that recently in the December of 2004, we had an oil tanker crash in Russia, well, regretfully, and now we are struggling. We're trying to, to fight with these negative consequences. We had amazing city called Anapa. Well, city still exists, but it was amazing resort on the seashore. But nowadays, regretfully, people won't go there because of the environmental catastrophe, because the sea is full of oil. And I wish we had a technology that could help us, to prevent it. Or to help to fight with the consequences. But I'm so sorry for that. It is, yes, like a moment of sorrow from myself. But Professor Sabrina, you're discussing very interesting things about the shipping industry and maritime transport. So my next question is the following: what regulatory or technological challenge do we face in ensuring that the digital transformation of maritime transport aligns with environmental sustainability goals?
Yeah, thank you for your question. Before I respond to your second question, I would like to add to your observation about the catastrophe, like the shipping oil spillage. I think this morning or yesterday, I read a news about shipping hazard by the coast of India, like in the Indian territory, and they're using some digitalized equipments to deal with the oil spillage and to monitor the overall scenario from using the drones and other digital equipments. So I can we can say that we are seeing some advancements in this area. Previously, it was very difficult to deal with this kind of situations. Like, it used to cause a lot of environmental hazards, but now they are using some technology and some digital equipments to monitor overall situation and to deal with the spillage and other matters. They have also informed the coastal people and other people to restricted them to reach nearby, as they are trying to deal with the overall matter without human interaction directly, rather using some digital equipments. So less human interaction and more digital interaction that we can see in terms of this kind of hazards. Talking about responding to your second question, about the challenges. Of course, we have been talking about the challenges from the beginning, and also the challenges are also here. Even though we believe that the digitalization will be environmental friendly and sustainable, however, there are some key challenges. First, there is often a gap between technology and regulation. Digital systems, as I have mentioned earlier, that digital systems move faster than the legal frameworks that should guide them. So until and unless we see an incident occurs, we cannot all anticipate or all the overall situation in a proper manner to adopt some regulations or policies. And Professor Daniel also mentioned that I think this is very common in most of the countries, that the policymakers, they are not well aware about the technology. So this is a challenge for them to adopt some regulations to regulate the technology. If they are not well aware about this, how can they adopt something or make some policies to regulate all these technologies? So there is a practical challenge there. So awareness is a challenge. From the policymakers to the user level, the awareness is a challenge, and the gap between the technology and regulation is also a related challenge. Second, many developing countries they face the infrastructure and cost barriers. So this addition of these technologies are they require a lot of expenses and funding. So the developing countries, they lack that, which limit access to advanced green technology. So this is one significant challenges in terms of adopting or digitalizing the maritime industry. That's why we can still see that there are many of the vessels or ships, they are so old, and the ports, they are not well infrastructured, so they emit more like black carbons or other pollutants contributing to climate change and greenhouse gas emissions. So this is a very significant challenge from the developing states perspective. And so Professor Daniel also mentioned that what the European countries, they have been doing, we cannot do the same, because our conditions or the policies or regulations or the situations are not same. So maybe we need more effective or strict regulations. Maybe it would be very hard to adopt any hard laws. Probably soft laws in the initial stages can help to mitigate those challenges. And then finally, of course, there is the issue of global coordination or cooperation with different standards and rules across countries. It's difficult to implement digital solutions that are both effective and sustainable. So due to the prior challenges, which I have mentioned, result into these challenges as well. So the global cooperation also becomes challenging, and the international treaties or conventions mostly they provide us the broad guidelines, or not very specific, or they are like not so strict for the developing countries. So it becomes difficult to harmonize with all the solutions or the agendas. So another major challenge is the lack of harmonized regulations, as different countries have different digital standards and environmental targets, which make the coordination difficult. In terms of technology, so the cost is real issue, especially for older ships and smaller ports. And another challenge is the cybersecurity. Of course, when we talk about digitalization, the cybersecurity is the simultaneous comes simultaneously, because it's like it's like comes in like a dual offer. Like we want to adopt this, we want to divert to from the manual programming to digitalization, and the cybersecurity is automatically there. So this is another practical challenge which needs to be resolved. And another challenge is could be so while digitalization holds a lot of promises, and we are very optimistic about the benefits and advantages of digitalization, however, due to these challenges, it becomes very difficult to adopt and support the environmental sustainability in practice. Uh, so these are the challenges. Therefore, we need global cooperation and the training, transfer of technology, and other supports from the developed states to the developing states to have a harmony and to meet the global goals or targets mutually or altogether. So if we can mitigate these challenges, we can see a greener and more environmental friendly and sustainable future. And the shipping industry, I think I'm always trying to do a lot. However, due to these challenges, it seems very difficult to reach the goals even by 2050. Maybe some of the countries will be able to achieve the goals, but most of the countries, it will be very difficult for them to reach those targets due to these challenges, which includes the technology, transfer of technology and the infrastructures, the cost, and other the differences between the legislations and regulations. So due to these challenges, it seems challenging to digitalize the shipping industry everywhere. However, we can always be optimistic and try for the best.
Oh, dear Professor Sabrina, thank you so much for this for this final of your speech. We really should be, as you like you said, and dear speakers, we actually are we are actually about to finish because as I can see, the time of our event will finish soon. So we all said what we wanted, and still we have a bit of time. So I could quickly finalize our event, and then I will give a word to you for some finalizing remarks. What I noticed today, first of all, thank you so much. It was amazing. I enjoyed our panel a lot. I knew a lot from each of you. You all are remarkable experts. I hope we will cooperate in the future a lot. And what I noticed that we all different personalities, we are representatives of the different countries, but still each of us, and we are experts, and each of us said the same. We need to develop cooperation. We need international cooperation to resolve our current issues. That is amazing. That means that we have the same thoughts, and of course it means that we need to cooperate again in the future. Thank you so much again for these thoughts. And now I want to give a quick word to Professor Maria. Maria, any finalizing remarks?
Um, so actually, I think that such kind of discussions is not is not words. It is much more useful, and I think that what we have said today is not only the sound that we make, but it is the step forward because we shared our experience, the experience that our countries have, and that is very important. It is very useful because we brought our overview on different things, and sometimes we find a common attitude to this or that problem that our countries face, and we also find our common attitude to the solution. And this is very important because you understand that you are on the right way. And in this sense, I think that such discussions are very productive. And I hope that thanks to you, to Daniel Ferreira, we would meet more and maybe can make some paper or book that can contribute to the global success in legal regulation of implementation digital technologies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria. I understood. You can't stop. You want another book. Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Daniel, your final remarks.
Thank you, Lisa. I think the one of the other main insights that I confirm, not that I bring, that I confirm, is the traditional problem of regulation, the square peg in a round hole. The idea that the regulators, they usually don't understand, especially when we talk about technology, they don't understand emerging technologies. And I have a very good example here in Brazil. I actually have several good examples, but one, when we talk about cryptocurrencies, a few years ago we had the Brazilian Central Bank regulating cryptocurrency as electronic currency. We had the Brazilian IRS regulating cryptocurrency as digital assets, and we had a bill in Congress trying to regulate cryptocurrencies as travel miles. So yeah, it was a complete insanity. And I like to bring back the an idea that I wrote by that time. That's the idea of the platypus, the animal from Australia. That is a very strange animal. It's cute, but it's a very different animal. It has claws and it lays eggs, but it also breastfeed. And it's the problem of regulation. How you can bring the platypus in the traditional taxonomy of regulation. And I think that without literacy, we won't move on regulation. We won't move on sustainability. We won't move on because if we don't understand, we cannot regulate what we don't understand. So I think that's a very interesting site that I can see. That's not only a problem in Brazil. It's not only a problem within the BRICS. It's a worldwide problem that we need to tackle, and we need to face it. And yeah, thank you. I could stay like 2-3 hours more here with you, learning and changing and exchanging. And thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure to meet you. I hope that we can be together in the future. And I would love to go to Russia as well, and visit you in China, and I hope to see you in Brazil as well in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, dear Daniel, especially for the platypus. Interesting comparison. And from platypus and Daniel in Brazil, Professor Sabrina, China, Bangladesh remarks. Please.
Thank you so much. I have also learned a lot from our experts, including you, Elizaveta. Thank you so much. And of course, the discussion is very timely, and we need to educate ourselves about these things, about the transformation within the industries, either it's shipping industry or any other industry. There is a transition, so we need to be very aware about this transition so that we can guide the policymakers well, and that's why we need this kind of discussions more. And of course, because China is a country, its economy is highly dependent on the technology and its advancement, and their regulations are also getting well advanced. So within this region, as a member of the BRICS, or their initiatives like Belt and Road initiatives and Maritime Silk Road initiatives, and their concept of ecological civilization, through these initiatives, they are kind of leading the other countries, and they are trying to cooperate and help the other countries as well. So through cooperation and effective cooperation, I should say, because we can always have cooperation in theory, but we need the cooperation in practice as well, not limited to the laws and regulations. So in practice, we need the effective cooperation, and China can always lead and help the other states to achieve the environmental sustainability and other agendas. So we are also looking forward to the outcomes of COP30, which will take place in Brazil. So we are very much looking forward to that. I hope we can achieve something better for the least developing countries or small countries as well. So that is what we are looking forward to. And I also hope to meet you in person, whether in Brazil or in Russia or in China, and in there soon. So I look forward to that. Thank you so much, Professor Maria, Professor Daniel, and Professor Elizaveta. Thank you so much.
Dear speakers, thank you so much. Спасибо большое. Muito obrigada. Xie. And I don't know how to say it in Bangladesh. Sorry.
You can say dhonnobad.
Exactly.
Xie is also fine.
Thank you so much, everyone. And I was really honored to be with you today. Enjoy your day, evening, or morning. Bye-bye. До свидания.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.